Thank you. I'd like to give a brief introduction here and then show a video clip. Actually, I'm going to have Stephen show a video clip. What I'm doing in this talk, how did we get here and where are we going, is providing a brief overview of human progress so far. So I'm going to talk very briefly about a whole bunch of very diverse things, technological, scientific, social, intellectual, moral progress. What advances have made us better off? What's made us worse off? What do we do next? And one really good presentation of that technological process was in the song we heard at the beginning. Another one is this short film called Why Man Creates from 1968. The presentation is very Eurocentric and male, being in the 60s, but I think it's still got a lot of great qualities. And it kind of goes over a whole bunch of what I'm going to cover and some of the quandaries that it creates. If you can share that. This is just the first 5 minutes of the whole short film.
Harry, do you realize you just invented the wheel?
I know.
Bronze, iron.
All was in chaos till Euclid arose and made order.
What is the good life? And how do you lead it?
Who shall rule the state?
The philosopher king.
The aristocrats.
The people.
You mean all the people? What is the nature of the good? What is the nature of justice?
What is happiness?
Hail Caesar!
Roman law is now in session.
Allah be praised. I've invented the zero.
What?
Nothing.
What is the shape of the earth? Flat. What happens when you get to the edge? You fall off. Does the earth move? Never.
The earth moves.
The earth is round.
The blood circulates. There are worlds smaller than ours.
There are worlds larger than ours.
Hey, what are you doing?
I'm painting the ceiling. What are you doing?
I'm painting the floor.
Darwin says man is an animal.
Rot. Man is not an animal.
Animal.
Man isn't an animal.
Shall we start from the beginning?
I'm a bug, I'm a germ, I'm a bug, I'm a... Louis Pasteur. I'm not a bug, I'm not a germ, I'm not a bug.
Think it'll work, Alfred?
Well, let's give it a try.
What do you think?
It worked. All men are created...
Life, liberty, and the pursuit.
Workers of the world. Government of the people, by the
world
people,
must be made
enforced
safe for
the
democracy.
To end
A league
all
of
war.
nations.
I see 1/3 of a nation ill-housed, ill...
One world.
All right, thanks, Stephen. So we had a very brief overview, and I'd like to go into a little bit of some of where we've come from and where we're going. To start with, where I'm talking about all the way back, that video started with some kind of cartoon cavemen, and we can look at how things have gotten better or worse or just different from back when all humans were hunters and gatherers. There are some things that have come a long way. There are some things that are actually worse. And let's start with food. We have huge amounts of food supplies now. We don't have to hunt our own food. We can go to a grocery store and have vast arrays of huge varieties of food. And our food supplies are just massive. We've come up with keeping our own animals, growing our own vegetables, growing grains in mass quantities, drying food, metal plows, crop rotation, synthetic fertilizers. We're starting to preserve food. We have canning, we have freezing, we have refrigerated storage and transport. We have food safety standards. We've done all these things. We have vastly more food available. And here is just one thing here. Let's see. I can share just one example of the changes in the food supply. Just 100 years ago, it cost almost 10 times as much to get food as it does now. It says in this article here, for the same length of work required to buy one breakfast in 1919, a blue-collar worker could get 9.54 breakfasts in 2019. They've gone through this analysis of all these different food items, and their prices in actual time worked have come way, way down. So obviously, we're better off, right? Well, we'll get there. Food is definitely more available. We'll get to some of the other aspects of that. Another aspect of human progress is life expectancy. Life expectancy is way, way better. And here's a chart on that. Over the past 200 years, sorry, I don't have back to prehistory, but over the past 200 years, life expectancy around the world has steadily increased. For the first, what was that? First, most of that, it was infant and maternal mortality, and more recently, it's been declining late life mortality. We've been able to extend the lives of older people as we get better at treating some of the conditions of older age. So this is obviously an improvement. We've got lots of things that have contributed to this. We have sewer systems, hygiene systems, we have germ theory, we have medicines that came out of germ theory, like vaccines and all kinds of treatments for things that used to be untreatable. We have better nutrition, vitamins. We have contraceptives, so people can have children when they want to rather than any time and reduce that health risk. We have dental care. We have, in many cases, national health programs that extend health care to people throughout a country. And so this has made a vast, vast difference in lifespans. That's an obvious improvement. We've also improved access to information. We've gone from just word of mouth to being able to write things down, print things and disseminate them. Newspapers that can be sent around the world, mail that can be sent around the world. Widespread literacy is a huge improvement. Most people are literate. We have public schools and universities. We have public libraries. We had radio, the telephone, television, and the internet, which suddenly extends most of human knowledge all over the world if you can get a signal somewhere. So that's amazing. The access to information we have these days is just phenomenal. It would have been incomprehensible quite recently in history. We've also vastly expanded our ability to calculate, compute, figure things out scientifically. We've gone from just having the animal sense of number to being able to count, calculate, invent zero, as was shown in the in one little moment in the Dark Ages there before. And then we had zero, we had calculus, we have the scientific method, we have the inventions of whole fields of statistics and various fields of science. We have computer technology leading into artificial intelligence and whole new ways of acquiring knowledge. So obviously, that's done a lot for us. We've done immense amounts with knowledge and access to knowledge. Both access to new knowledge as we figure things out, and then ability of people to learn those new things. And obviously, transportation, we've gone from just walking to riding animals, roads, ships, trains, cars, airplanes, and now we're heading out into space in a number of ways. And our shelters are better. We've gone from, mud huts and things like that to bigger, stronger, safer, more functional and comfortable buildings with heat and light and air conditioning and power to power all our convenience devices. So that's all pretty great. So we've done all these amazing things. So many things have improved about human life. What has not improved? Where have we actually ended up worse off with all this technological development? Well, there are some pretty clear losers in progress like this. One of them, I talked about how much more abundant and varied food is now. That's true, but we've also lost some things about individual foods. We've lost nutrition and we've lost taste and variety within a species. For instance, we now have produce bred for appearance and sturdiness. Some of those things like heirloom tomatoes don't travel so well. You can buy them at your local farmer's market, but you're not going to see them on the supermarket shelves in general because they squish. So we've got things being selected for something other than nutrition or flavor. They're getting picked for they can stand up to traveling across the world. Meat and eggs are lower in the healthy fats and vitamins because they're being fed cheap feed. So you can get lots of steaks or lots of chicken legs, but they're not as nutritious as they were 50 years ago. Processed foods are higher in starches, sugars, and fats, and lower in vitamins, fiber, and protein than the natural foods they're derived from. So just as we've improved in quantity and availability of food, we've also decreased in the food value of individual foods. Picking a tomato out of your own garden is very different from going and buying one at a supermarket chain. We've also very clearly and even catastrophically lost on environmental quality. We've lost wilderness and green space, biological diversity as we destroy the habitats of animals, kill off individual species or whole categories like insects. We've lost access to clean air and water and soil, and we've lost even a safe, livable climate in a lot of areas and increasingly much of the world. We're deforesting, draining swamps, building up areas, taking up space that used to be wilderness and habitat and forest. We're polluting it, we're warming it, we're flooding it. So we're doing massive damage to our environment as a species, and for other species as well. And this is something that our society is not well equipped to counter, because we have not acknowledged how our entire species affects our entire habitat before. So we're thinking about it only on small scale levels, and that's not what's necessary. I'm going to come back to that, but that is a huge, important loss that we've got going with all this progress. Another place where we have losses is in close social bonds, mutual support, and accountability. When humans all lived in small bands of about 100 people, they were related, they knew each other, they could keep an eye on each other, both to take care of one another and to tell if someone was cheating, defecting, doing less than their share, taking more than their share. So you had this back and forth individual connection. If I make a boat, it's going to be for my husband or my cousin or somebody, and I want to make that boat really safe and really strong. If I make a boat in the modern world, I'm doing part of the job in a factory, and it's going to go across the world to someone I don't even know. My connection to how well that boat works is almost zilch. I might feel a personal responsibility, but there's really no visceral or concrete connection there. And the people in charge of my boat building are up in some office somewhere. They don't even know me, never mind the person they're selling to. So we have this disconnect between people and also between the work we do and the effects that it has. So another place where we've lost something is in the meaningfulness of work. It used to be that people did work because they and their families and their immediate communities needed that work done. So they would do that work and see the results. Now, most people work abstract jobs for people they don't know. So they may go to an office and they might shuffle some numbers or some digits or some pixels around, and something changes, but it doesn't produce a visible result. And it's not for the immediate benefit of people in their community. So we often feel really disconnected from the work we do. We can feel like we don't do anything meaningful because of this sort of scale difference and impersonalization of our work. Another huge place where we've lost in progress is rest. We get way less rest than hunter-gatherers, and in fact, less rest than medieval peasants. Hunter-gatherers have and had more free time than agricultural peoples. This has been compared in modern hunter-gatherers versus members of the same tribe who become agriculturalists. The agriculturalists work longer hours. You can count hunter-gatherer leisure time a few different ways. It's either they get a bit more work once they become agriculturalists, or way more work, depending on how you count it. Medieval peasants we think of as working really, really hard, and they did when they were working, but they had huge amounts of leisure time, both during the day and during the year. There were holidays, there were breaks, they had time off for feast days and weddings, and this isn't when the crops are growing anyway, we're just going to take some time off. So even though they were doing very hard labor, they also had more leisure time than modern industrial people do, and especially than modern American people do. The United States is particularly bad on the world stage as far as how long people work during the day, during the week, during the year. Most European countries, people have far more vacation. But still, we kind of compare our norm to the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution was really a bizarre maximum of hours worked. Let me bring up another couple little images here. So there are a number of articles out there about comparing hunter-gatherers to today and comparing, or ancient hunter-gatherers to today and modern hunter-gatherers to modern agriculturalists. It's a similar comparison because the hunter-gatherer lifestyle hasn't changed that much while everything else has. And also comparing medieval peasant work and leisure to modern industrial and post-industrial work and leisure. So this is one of them. And again, our norms are kind of compared to the Industrial Revolution, when we had this very anomalous maximum of people working tremendously long, exhausting, ruinous hours, including children. You can see a couple of cotton mill workers here who are small children, so small they have to stand on the equipment instead of in front of the equipment in their bare feet and their ragged clothes that look like they've been caught in the mill already a couple of times. So we're thinking of ourselves as being pretty well off because we're not working in cotton factories 80 hours a week, but we're not as well off for leisure as the people who were doing home industry and agriculturalism before that, nor the hunter-gatherers who preceded all of us. And this is something that a lot of Americans don't realize, that working this hard is not, in fact, normal for humans, either in history or in the world. And now we come to some things that are more ambiguous. Coming back to health improvements, all those advances in medicine can only help the people who have access to them. And right now in the modern world, we have huge numbers of people who have no access to all this amazing modern medical technology. And, you can look at, okay, so lots and lots of rural Africa, for instance, does not have protection against malaria and diseases. And so we're trying to extend things like bed nets and vaccines and things like that to rural Africa. But this is true even within the United States. Because we don't have a national health care system, we have people who can't afford insulin. And that is ridiculous, because insulin has been around for many decades at this point, and it's cheap to make, and yet it's not accessible. So this is a place where we've got the technology, but because of the kind of economy we have huge distribution problems. And this is a global problem, but it is probably worst in the United States as compared to other nations, because we have the largest discrepancy between our economic, our highest economic levels and our lowest economic levels, because we don't have an appropriate distribution of resources here. If your whole country is poor, okay, people aren't going to have access to medical care everywhere. But if your whole country is some vastly wealthy and some very poor, that's less understandable. And that's what we've got going here. A little more trivially, we've got entertainment. We have, as with all forms of other information, we can trivially get nearly any book, show, movie, music, game, art piece, sports match, whatever you want, sent straight to your home or to a device in your hand. But we are overwhelmingly consuming passive entertainment rather than making art or participating in events ourselves at this point, and that is a loss. We get many, many people watching one individual performer who's considered one of the best in the world, and lots of people feel discouraged because they're not as good as that person, and fewer people go into that art or whatever. When the best dancer in your village was the best dancer you were ever going to see, there's a smaller distance between you and peak performance, and more people felt like they could do the thing. We have this sense now that people are only supposed to do art if they're good at it, and that's not normal for humans. It's normal for humans to do art for art's sake, because it's a good thing for us to do, to express ourselves, to engage in exercise, to socially interact using art. And that's something that we tend to be moving away from at this point. Forms of energy, I kind of went into that too. We've gone way forward from just human power to fire and animals to wind and water and steam and coal and oil and electricity and nuclear power, and coming back to solar and wind power, but more efficiently than we ever could before. But we're still overwhelmingly using non-renewable greenhouse gas emitting power sources that are damaging our environment on a large scale. So again, we've come a long way. We still have problems with implementation and distribution of these technologies we've come up with. There's an article I found while researching this talk that is called This is How a Civilization Collapses. I can share that article here. So you can find this article, This is How a Civilization Collapses, and read the details. This is by Umer Haq. I'm not sure whether I'm pronouncing his name appropriately, but you can see the spelling there. So I would like to share a quote from this article that kind of gets at the core of what I see as our progress and where we have problems with human progress right now. The rich are getting mega rich, but the world's proles, the average person, sees less and less of a share of the global economy every single year. Hence, they are growing discontented, frustrated, angry, disappointed, and they turn to demagogues who teach them to hate instead of ever really improve their lives, selves, or societies. So he's speaking here of the whole world. It's going on everywhere. But then let's talk about the US specifically for a minute. He says, the average American can't raise a few $100s for an emergency. Their life expectancy, happiness, real income, savings are all falling. They have little chance to live lives of dignity, freedom, and purpose. They will have to choose between healthcare bills and their homes or their savings and their lives, and so on. Meanwhile, a tiny handful of Americans have grown obscenely, surreally, bizarrely rich. Bezos, Gates, and Buffett are worth more than the entire US education budget each. Wait, a person that's worth more than how much a society invests in all its kids? What the? But that is what economic collapse is, my friends, because these men are worth so astonishingly much. The rest of America doesn't have enough left to invest in education, healthcare, childcare, retirement, elderly care, and so America doesn't have any of those things. So this is kind of the core of what I see as the problem with how we've progressed thus far. We have all kinds of amazing technological and intellectual and scientific development, but it's not distributed appropriately. We're not focusing our energies and our resources on things that will get these benefits to a wider range of people, and also focusing on how we can prevent ourselves from destroying the habitability of our planet in the process of enjoying these new technologies. So that's kind of where we are. We've come a long way politically and socially. Let's talk about like ethics and human rights a little bit. We've invented all kinds of advancements in those things. We've invented democracy. We've invented having a republic, voting, and freedoms of speech and assembly and religion or non-religion. We have systems for public education and information access. We have legal systems that have a defense of the accused and so on. This is some amazing stuff we've come up with. And it doesn't necessarily add up to progress. We can look back to ancient hunter-gatherer tribes. Some of them seem to have been egalitarian and gentle and allow for the support of people who couldn't contribute concretely. And others were violent and oppressive, maybe a mix of the two. And modern societies now are also a mix. You know, we've done things like make slavery illegal over most of the world, but it still persists in numerous forms. We've got prison labor. We've got human trafficking that goes on regardless of being illegal. Some modern nations have social services and civil rights and adequate housing and food and medical care for everyone, while some are politically oppressive, dangerous because of gang activity or warlords or militarized police or all of the above. And some include some people dying of poverty while others have vast wealth. So we've come up with these ideas, but we're not always carrying them out because we have this distribution problem and this implementation problem. So where we are today and where we can focus on is taking all these incredible developments in technology and food creation and intellectualization and ethics. We can take all these things and apply them to the problem of making our planet livable for longer over more of its surface and getting these goods to more people. And that's where I think we need to be going, whether or not we are currently going there. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva.